You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Arya Whitner, and this is your NXT and CWC audio report for Wednesday, August 31st, 2016. If there was ever an episode of NXT that proved that it was a new era, tonight was that night. Oh boy, we've been spoiled, ladies and gentlemen. We've sat here for the last 2 years, ever since the WWE Network came out, and we've seen a lot of quality, top-notch wrestling from some of the best men and women in the United States, and in fact all over the world. And there are very few people who remember NXT before the days of the network. Yeah, we had Cesaro versus Sami Zayn, but we also had a lot of Mason Ryan. We had a lot of, Enzo Amore before they could trust him to even have an offensive maneuver. There was 6 months where Enzo Amore could not even, do a single offensive maneuver. They did not trust him to do anything. That's how bad he once was. We're not getting to the point that they're putting people on TV that can't do offense, but oh boy, this show, last week, was kind of an aberration because it was, the Brooklyn crowd, and even the week before, because it was the go-home show to Brooklyn, you could give it a pass, but this week, now it's 3 weeks in a row that we're getting some substandard in-ring action here, and this may be what we can look forward to for the next few months, is there to build up more people. Now they've got it so much about the men's and women's divisions. But let's start from here. Let's hope I'm wrong. Let's, hope that, the shows are better than the last few normal weeks have been. Earlier today, the Doctor was backstage, and he informed both Samoa Joe and William Regal that Joe is not medically cleared to compete. He suffered several injuries at TakeOver Brooklyn. Joe stormed out of his office without saying a word. On the other side of the credits, we start the new era with Ty Dillinger versus Buddy Murphy. Dillinger going for a winning streak, having won last week over Wesley Blake. Murphy, in the tag team divorce, got to keep the annoying dubstep music, even though both his partner and his woman left him. The crowd chanted 1 at Murphy as opposed to perfect 10 for Ty Dillinger, and then decided to downgrade him by chanting, "You're a 0. This match was actually better than the Blake match last week. For one, it was shorter, and for another, the crowd actually cared about more than chanting, and Dillinger won with the tiebreaker. We had videotape footage of Jordan Gargano tapping out both at TakeOver and then last week in the CWC. This led to an attempted backstage interview with Tommaso Ciampa. Ciampa began talking when the Revival walked up, which led to a fight with all three men. The fight spilled into the arena with the Revival throwing Ciampa over the announcer's table and then beating him down to the ring. Ciampa tried to defend himself, but he couldn't get much of anything, since at one point Dash was holding his arms behind his back while Dawson beat on him. Revival kicked Ciampa out of the ring like garbage before grabbing the microphone and announcing that everyone is a tough guy until they face reality, and the Revival is that reality. Gargano and Ciampa faced the top guys in NXT, and it was a reality check for them. Ciampa dragged himself back into the ring. The crowd's going nuts. Ciampa has this real creepy smile on his face, and then he got laid out with the Shatter Machine. Hey, I'm looking forward to more matches with those four men. We then get a match that really happened, and chances are will happen again. Steve Cutler versus Kenneth Crawford. And there are a couple hundred people listening to this right now going, who? These two men have been TV jobbers in the past. You might recall way back when the WWF would do house shows. In fact, several of them are on the network right now. They would start the house show with a match between two actual jobbers. This was about as close as we've gotten to that in the last couple decades. Steve Cutler has Lash LaRue sideburns. If you don't remember Lash LaRue, he was in WCW at the end, red hair and big giant goofy sideburns that made an L on his face. At least his name was Lash LaRue, so there's a reason why his sideburns made an L. I don't know why Steve Cutler has shaved his sideburns into an L. Kenneth Crawford is not to be confused with former developmental wrestler Kenneth Cameron, who, by the way, was also in the Ascension originally. And he, by the way, is now Bram in TNA. Not sure what was on the bottom of his boots, but Crawford kept slipping every time he'd be in a situation where he had to land on his feet. Crawford is green. Cutler isn't that much better, but he is a little better. So at least, he's able to, at least they're giving the push to the guy who's slightly better. Crawford hit a running shooting star press at one point, but Cutler won a very weak match with a fisherman suplex into like a Michinoku driver move. Hideo Itami was backstage and said that NXT TakeOver, it was a great moment to kick Austin Aries in the head. He mocked Aries, claiming to be injured, saying that Aries is a baby and not a real man. And if Aries is not a real man, then he needs to stay out of Itami's ring, or he'll make Aries go to sleep again. Sanity is coming. Sanity is coming. Sanity is coming. No Way Jose took on Angelo Dawkins up next. Someone in the front row was so excited for Jose's entrance that he was caught on camera yawning. Dawkins, I want to point out, I did a little bit of research. Dawkins has been on NXT since 2012. He's been in NXT since they started NXT. And in 4 years, he's had maybe a dozen television matches in that entire time. And once upon a time, he even teamed with Sawyer Fulton, another person who there's a bunch of people going, who? Anyway, this was not Dawkins' night to get one in the win column, as it was all about Jose getting a win coming off of Brooklyn. Jose picked up the win with a wind-up punch and the Cobra Clutch Slam. After the match, Jose literally ran into the crowd and danced with the people in the cheap seats. Andrade Cien Almas was backstage and attempted to do a promo when Austin Aries walked up eating a banana. Yes, Aries' gimmick now is apparently he eats a lot of fruit. If you recall, a few weeks ago he was eating an orange in Mr. Regal's office. Anyway, Aries said that Hideo Itami busted his eardrum. Almas got angry at this interruption and yelled at him in Spanish, and this led to a challenge for next week. Aries backed away, saying that he couldn't hear Almas. Liv Morgan versus Aaliyah. There's no more Charlotte, there's no more Becky Lynch, there's no more Paige, no Emma, no Sasha Banks, no Bayley, and no Nia Jax, but now we've got to rebuild the NXT Women's Division, and we got to pick somebody to push, and I guess they're going to push Liv Morgan. This match was a story of two halves. The first half of this match was fine. Absolutely nothing wrong with this match. The most notable thing in the first half of this match was that 300 residents of the state of Florida began chanting for the state of New Jersey. Then the second half of the match happened. Aaliyah slapped on a Kimura, and somehow was able to combine that with a head scissors. Turns out her Kimura is not nearly as good as Brock Lesnar's was, as Liv got out of it with no problem whatsoever, and in fact was so unaffected by this that she didn't even bother to sell her arm before the finish, where Liv threw a spin kick that was closer to hitting me in the face than came to hitting her opponent. They tried to shoot it at an angle that it didn't look so obvious, but man, oh man, Maddie, this was horrible. No Way Jose was backstage and happy that he beat Angelo Dawkins when Bobby Roode walked by, straightened his suit jacket, and then walked away. Time for the main event segment. The linear IWGP Intercontinental Champion and the brand new reigning NXT Champion Shinsuke Nakamura is in the house. The fans sang his theme song, which is harder to do when your song doesn't have any lyrics to it. Sometimes I think the lyrics, or not the lyrics, but the chants are more predetermined than the matches are, as they seamlessly transition from chanting Nakamura to You Deserve It. Anywho, Nakamura said that when he was in Japan, he was on top of the world, and he wanted to face new challenges. And the only place to challenge the best is here in NXT. And he came here and he faced the best, from Sami Zayn to Finn Balor to Samoa Joe. His neck hurts, his knee hurts, his fingers are shaking, but despite that, despite all of that, he is the NXT champion. He's held championships before, but this one means the most. And he has great respect for Samoa Joe, but the Joe era is over. Instead, it is the era of strong style. And then the show ended with Nakamura playing to the crowd. No new challengers came out, no anything like that. That was it. But next week, Asuka returns for the first time since Brooklyn. So what will happen when she returns? I guess we'll find out then. But let's transition over to the Cruiserweight Classic, episode number 8. It's almost over, folks, and the matches are just getting better. We start with Gran Metallik versus Akira Tozawa. The first half of this match, there was nothing wrong with it, but it was so unremarkable that it was 10 minutes into the match and I realized I'd written nothing about it. Tozawa seemed content to use the clock to wear out Metallik, almost encouraging Gran Metallik to use all of his energy early, and Tozawa fought to withstand all of Metallik's offense. Metallik used a running shooting star press that I should point out is 1,000 times nicer than the one Kenneth Crawford busted out on NXT. Tozawa used the Saito suplex, both of which, by the way, led to 2 counts. Metallik used the crazy dive where he jumps and springboards off of the middle rope, doing his flip dive over the top rope to the floor outside. I just remember the first time I saw that, somehow I thought he jumped under the top rope, to where when he jumped and springboarded off the middle rope, he was already on the other side of the ropes. That's impossible, but if I could believe anyone could do that, I think Metallik could probably pull that off. Anyway, back in the ring, Metallik used a snap hurricanrana, and somehow Tozawa kicked out, which no one could believe. Not Metallik, not the fans. Hell, I don't even think Tozawa believed that he kicked out of it. Anyway, Tozawa hit his delayed German suplex, but Metallik kicked out of it, and finally Metallik hit the Metallik driver and picked up the win. Moving on to the semifinals. Main event time. Yes, when you only have 2 matches and they both go 20 minutes, there's not a whole lot else to have on the show. Brian Kendrick versus Kota Ibushi. Not as good as the first match, but still very exciting. Ibushi hit his Golden Star moonsault to the floor in the first 2 minutes of the match. Kendrick, I think, must have been studying the best of Toru Yano, as at one point he tried to get Ibushi counted out by trapping his foot inside of the the guardrails. Why I'm suddenly, my brain suddenly stopped working there for a second, folks, but I'm back. Kendrick used the Rude Awakening neck breaker on the actual buckle that connected the ropes to the ring post. This led to a series of holds that would normally be rest holds, but are now deadly submission holds because Kendrick is working on the neck. However, the problem with that is, at one point Ibushi stopped selling the neck, and he seemed to go in and out of selling the neck. I don't say he flat out stopped, but he went in and out of selling, and it just got ridiculous at one point. Kendrick hit the Kendrick, which was actually called a sliced bread number 2 for the first time in a very long time, but Ibushi kicked out. Ibushi hit a German suplex off of the middle rope into the ring, which was spectacular, but was when Ibushi stopped selling his neck, because, if your neck is hurting that badly, I know in theory when you're doing a German suplex you should be landing on your back. You're going to tell me you're going to do that move while your neck is that messed up. Anyway, Kendrick got on the bully choke to no avail. He actually hit a burning hammer for a 2 count. Ibushi missed the Phoenix Splash. Kendrick slapped on the bully choke again. Ibushi got out of it and hit his running sit-out powerbomb for the win. Ibushi is a semifinalist. And Daniel Bryan, he was in tears, just more out of celebrating his friend, doing so well in this tournament, which was basically his last chance there. And, we're going to see what happens from here, folks. But that's going to do it from NXT. That's going to do it from the CWC. We're almost done. 2 more weeks, folks. And let's get through next weekend. Until then, thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you again in 7 days.